Hey friends, I want to thank our sponsor, Raygun. Are you struggling to replicate the bugs and performance issues that your customers are reporting? Plug Raygun into your web and mobile applications right now and diagnose problems in minutes rather than hours. Kiss goodbye having to dig through log files and relying on frustrated users to report issues. Make your software development life so much easier using Raygun's error, crash, and performance monitoring tools. Every software team can create flawless software experiences for their customers with Raygun. Try it free today at raygun.com. That's RAYGUN.com. Hi, this is Scott Hansel, and this is another episode of Hansel Minutes. Today I'm talking with Tomomi Imura. She's an open web advocate and a front-end engineer, and she works at Slack right now, and you can check her out at girlymac.com. But most importantly, the HTTP status cats. I remember that. How are you?
Hi, yeah, I'm fine, all right. How about you?
I'm very, very well, all by myself here in this time where we're all sequestered and staying away from humans. It's always nice to talk to humans on a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Hope you're staying safe where you are.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at http.cat, not .com, .cat. What is the story behind HTTP status cats?
All right. It's all started when I was working at HP. That was a long time ago. It's probably like 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was a crazy time for me because I was initially working at a company called Palm at the Palm Web OS team. And the company I loved my job that time too, but company got acquired by HP. And at that time we had a CEO who was interested in on the product, but it's a lot happened. So CEO got ousted. We got a new CEO. Then the new CEO didn't really care about what we do or like a product itself. So we had some uncertain time, like we weren't sure if we should resume the project or not. So for a while, I didn't really have a lot of work to do, to be honest. I was just fooling around in the office, browsing internet, looking for some funny cat videos and cat pictures like everybody else does. And then, of course, when you're browsing, like whatever the web page is, sometimes you get forward, the page not found. Then I was like, got a wild idea. Like, what? Maybe what if, I put a picture of cat. So since it's 404, maybe just cat hiding in somewhere. Cat's not found. Yeah. So then, of course, my imagination goes wild. So I start thinking about, what about 401? It's unauthorized, right? So I was looking for the cat who got banned from entering a store or something like that. And like 49, it's conflict. So I find a picture of two cats fighting. And things like that. And I got, of course, we got 418. I am a teapot cat. Cat in a teapot, of course. So, so I just start doing all that silly things with the cat pictures. And magically, we could get a lot of collections, like 500. It's like everything. So I posted, I think I used a Flickr at the time. Flickr was popular at that time. So I posted those pictures on Flickr. And oh my gosh, and all of a sudden, of course I tweeted too. Then I got so popular, like in overnight. In the very next day, like somebody from like Mashable was contacting me, and somebody from like, I think it was CNN Tech and everywhere. So it gets viral. Yeah, and the cool thing was community helped pick it up. So a lot of people are interested in creating the APIs or like Apache config or even some variants like HTTP status dogs or like HTTP, like Beyonce versions and all kind of stuff. And then there's one guy, I think his name is Rogerio Vicente in Lisbon. And he actually got .cat domain name to host those photos. Actually, he wrote APIs to use that cat pictures too. And so he got this http.cat domain. I was like, wow, that's awesome. Because I can't get that domain because you have to host a Catalan language or Catalan culture or something
Right.
related.
He's in the Catalan region. So .cat
Right.
is Catalan. And when you go to http.cat, you just say /404 /500, and then you
Yeah.
get to get your cat pictures.
And that page is actually available in Catalan language too, because I have to.
That's pretty
That's
cool.
a requirement. So yeah, so that's what it is. And it's been a while, but people still discovering, like even now. So funny thing is that, I work at Slack, but we use Slack at Slack. And there's always some engineers find about, hey, we find something cool. And somebody else was like, oh yeah, Tomomi made it. So it's always reacted with custom emoji, like Tomomi emoji. So it happens like oftentimes. I mean, it happens all the time. So yeah,
So I noticed that that's been a couple of years, and it's a cute thing, and it's nice to kind of go viral and get your 15
yeah,
minutes, right?
right.
But and I saw that and I filed it away in my mind, and I said that's interesting. And then I noticed some of your sketch notes on how to do Git, and there's cats. And then I went to your GitHub, and there's cats, and your website, and there's cats. It seems like you don't do hello world. Like you're not a hello world person. Everything has got to have a cat if it's going to be a hello world example.
Right, it's like always meow. So yes, many times when I tried some new API or platform, I just always try to create something around cats. I love cats, and actually, even right now, if you hear this noise, I'm sorry, my cats are running around like crazy. They just woke up. Anyway, so cats are always, part of my life. So yeah, many times when I just try something new, it's like, yeah, why don't I use cats as example?
I think that's really important to have like a thing like that. Like, I think it's hard. There's so many technologies and so many things I could potentially learn. And I'm not inspired by Hello World, like making a robot say Hello World. Everyone's got their own thing. Like your thing is cats.
Right.
My thing is like my diabetes and my blood sugar. So I have I have an HTTP REST API for my blood sugar, and I can go and see my blood sugar in real time. So if it's like, hey, this is a new LCD screen and a new Adafruit, device, then show me my blood sugar. Or when Alexa came out, I want to say, Alexa, show me my blood sugar. Or the Apple Watch comes out, I want it on my watch. So you want cats on your Apple Watch and on Alexa, and I want my blood sugar. And I think it's important that everyone find that thing, right? That passion that drives them to play with technology.
True, because of course you can always follow some tutorials out there. Just write the plain old hello world. But why not just combine with something you love, you have a passion for? That makes, easier to learn new things and to just motivate you to create more things, So
yeah. A while back, you did, I think it was a couple of years ago, you did a cat face detection. And sometimes
it's kitty cam,
right,
yeah.
Yeah, kitty cam. So you did kitty cam, and when the Raspberry Pi 3 came out, you said, "Oh, faster CPU. I'm going to go and upgrade kitty cam." Whenever I see tutorials like that, I wonder if people who are listening to our show here think the same thing, where it's like, "Oh, that sounds hard. There's so many different things to plug in. They're going to do, image detection and then do something about it, and hardware and wiring." But when I read through the details on your blog, it was really about bringing together libraries that were already done, right?
Right. So I actually wanted to show people, like, I am not an expert, hardware wiring and everything's fun, but to be honest, I really don't know much about it, but I just, I try, it's the same thing, the hello world, and try it on the hello world, but I'm like, yeah, what can I do with cats, So, like, again, just writing hello world is kind of boring. So sooner or later, I just come up with some project. And of course, my projects are always about cats. I'm like, what can I do? Then, I learned I could use camera modules with Raspberry Pi. And then I started learning so much about sensors, what kind, like motion sensors or maybe proximity sensors, all kind of stuff. It was all like motivated by what I wanted to create. That time, like I really wanted to have something like cat camera. Then I learned about this open source library about cat facial detection. That sounds really funny. It sounds like I'm joking, but it really is. So I'm like, whoa, at least I can write software. Hardware, I'm an amateur, but for the software part, at least I know how to write in Node.js. I'm like, okay, I'm going to just use it. So I just make it work. I mean, just using a third-party library and make it work. And I just put it all together and done. I mean, it's not done. I can always improve, but at least I got something,
And that's the kind of project you can do in a weekend, right? You don't need to take weeks for this kind of thing.
Yeah, I use my week. Yeah, so I was so into, I was absorbed myself. So I spent, I don't know how many weekends I spent because again, everything is something I learned from scratch. I'm no expert. I had some friends I could ask for advice, but still, it's all about learning. So when I'm done with this, I'm like, why don't I just share what I've learned? I just didn't want to put that on GitHub and, just show people, okay, here, that's what I made. It's more like I wanted to, write down like a whole instruction so other people could create too. And in fact, people actually did, fork my project. I mean, this GitHub repo and created something by themselves too. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So the kitty dar, like radar, but kitty dar was a face detection for cats that Heather Arthur did. It's not maintained anymore, but it's a couple years old. Yeah. And you plugged all these things together. You took the Raspberry Pi, the facial detection, the camera, then you pushed it up to the cloud. So you basically made a cam that would watch when your cats came by. Did you watch them? You watch them remotely from work if the cats are doing something important?
Now it's unplugged, but yes, I've been monitoring for a while. Yeah. And
that's awesome.
That time, actually, I was working at some startups. So I use a technology that, we were actually creating. So I'm looking at my GitHub repo right now. But it's like,
Well, that's another good example. You were using a technology that your company already works on, right? So like, I work at Microsoft and I work on Azure. So I want to move my blog to Azure. And then if a new feature comes out, then I will go and apply it to my life rather than just messing around with the feature. I want to really try it. If I want to do a bot or a Slack bot or a Teams bot, then I'm going to plug it into my life and not just a Hello World bot.
Yeah. So that time, I was working at a company, like a startup called PubNub. We're doing some, the real-time communication. So I use that.
That's what PubNub was.
So I could actually get those images from Raspberry Pi to elsewhere. So I could monitor on like browsers. Actually, not just me. Anyone could browse because that time I had a public URL, so anyone could watch my cat. I think I pull it off for now, but because it has so much, privacy. And also,
do you ever worry about putting those things online? Do you ever worry about those projects? Like sometimes people who will listen to the show will say, I don't feel comfortable putting my hobby online because people might judge it and say, oh, that sucks.
Well, that happens actually. But, that's still, I take it as a feedback because I don't consider I'm just always giving out or just sharing whatever because I can learn from other people too. So I actually made a lot of good online friends who could teach me things too. Yeah, and recently I actually tweeted about some doodling stuff and, I thought I kind of understood the subject correctly, but turns out I had a mistake that I didn't even know. And there are a lot of people who, I don't personally know, actually send me messages. And my DMs are always open. So some people have DM'd me about that to correct me in really nicely and try to even show me some examples and references too. So actually, I don't mind if somebody say that. Well, if somebody tells me nicely, if somebody just, tweet it and say, "Oh, you suck," and I'm gonna cry. But as long as people are nice about it,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I try to make people as I try to
Mm-hmm.
facilitate a kind image around myself. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
being positive, then people will be positive. If
Mm-hmm.
people are going to be cruel, then I block and
Oh
move
yeah,
on. I don't need
true.
any negativity in my life.
Right. I just, don't feed the trolls. Like, I just don't deal with it. If somebody's nasty
Hmm.
about it, I'm like, great, you're smarter than me. Well, at least you think so, but I don't care. So
That's
move
a good
on.
point.
Yeah. So I'm fine with the. Mhm.
When you need to focus on building, do you want to get bogged down by your database? MongoDB is an intuitive, flexible document database that lets you get to building. MongoDB's document model is a natural way to represent data so you can focus on what matters. MongoDB Atlas is the best way to use MongoDB. It's a global cloud database service that gives you all of the developer productivity of MongoDB, plus the added simplicity of a fully managed database service. You can get started free with MongoDB Atlas at mongodb.com/atlas. So when I look at your sketch notes, though, here's another thing. Like you develop in Node, you
Mhm.
go online, you give presentations, you do a lot of stuff, and then you have these really nice sketch notes. And every time I see someone's sketch notes, I feel sad
Why?
because I don't have this ability.
Mhm.
Like I can't make this pretty handwriting and pictures and stuff. Or are you an artist, or is it? How do you know how to do sketch notes? Because I'm always envious.
I love design and art, but I actually never had a formal training, you know, so I didn't. Yeah, I actually still learning. But the funny thing is that, well, it's my background. So I was born and raised in Japan, and as a
Mm-hmm.
kid, I used to be reading a lot of manga, which is a comic books equivalent in here in the US. But I just prefer calling
Mm-hmm.
manga because the Japanese manga is quite different. But anyway, so yeah, so I was always I always get in trouble from my parents that they didn't like me reading all the time, but I was so into. So a lot of times, we try to just mimic, just drawing or maybe tracing something like from manga. So that's kind of common
Mm-hmm.
things that kids in Japan do. So my brother was doing that too. So it kind of naturally acquired like how to draw by just copying or mimicking the stuff from manga book or maybe anime. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, and the funny thing is, other thing is, there's not always just a manga that parents didn't like. We have something like very educational ones, like some manga that you can learn a lot about history, like Japanese ancient histories, or could be some like a Chinese dynasty. That's a popular one, or even French revolutions and stuff. So
Really?
there's so many manga that you can learn from. So for me, like education and like manga or doodling is always like I wouldn't say the same thing, but it's always like somewhere the same place in my brain, or I would say. So when I doodle or something, like, I don't know, it's just natural for me. When I launch something new, I doodle. And if I want to teach somebody, how to, I don't know, could be just computer science or logics or anything, I doodle. Oh, it's actually, you know what? I remember something. So I'm actually doing software engineering now, but after college, I had different career. So that time I was working at a research lab, actually microbiology lab. That would be
Wow.
yeah. So we had a lot of research protocols and lab protocols we had to follow. And it's not like a software engineering that you can create bugs and no one dies. For like a research and stuff, any mistakes can be really serious, costly, and deadly. So we have to make sure like everything's perfectly aligned and calculated and everything. And at that time, it was complicated, and a lot of times, like people who just joined our lab couldn't really follow the procedure fine. So I decided to draw pictures. So I had a doodle of all the petri dish and the flask, Erlenmeyer flasks, and everything. And after I actually drew and I put this my doodle on a wall, actually everybody appreciated me. I mean, everybody understood exact like how the process should go. So then I knew doodling really helps people to learn, So I think I've been doing this like my entire life, I would say, like no matter how old I was or like, you know, career I had. So now I'm in the software, but I still do the same thing.
Interesting. So you're taking notes for yourself,
Mhm.
and then you start to do it in a certain style, the style that you grew up with, and then in the process, you share those online, and people go and say, "Oh, I get it now." It helps you understand, and then it ultimately helps me understand as the
Exactly.
consumer.
So it's the same thing. Like when I'm in school, like when I was in high school or anything, a teacher's explaining something, I tend to doodle. Maybe not. Well, maybe because teacher was boring, so I started doing something else. But that's actually like a part of my learning process. So I draw something and understand, and the same like when I was teaching to people, was showing something. That's how I do, and I think it's easier for so many people who are especially like a visual learners. Hmm.
I think those things are really important. I think you've probably seen like Julia Evans has some really popular zines, and she's done a lot of really great visualizations to describe stuff. You've done a great one in your Git recently. Your Git cherry pick and Git commits, basically explaining Git with cartoon cats.
Yeah, it's actually I have a pun, so it's get pull, but a get pull, and the get push for get pull. Yeah. But cherry pick, I couldn't really come up with a good cat pun.
Yeah, there's not really a good one there for cherry pick.
Yeah, so Get is actually really hard, difficult to learn too, because, it's all started because I am not good at using Get. And even at work, my daily work, well, of course, I do use Get, but I sometimes screw up, especially when I try to merge, when I had a lot of conflicts and stuff. So I'm really frustrated with Get. I thought I knew, but it's just not really.
See, every time I think I know Git, then I get in trouble. I swear. I regularly am like, "Oh yeah, I get it now. I get it now." And then I have to cherry pick, or I'm on, the thing when you're on one branch for a while, you do a bunch of work and you go, "Oh crap. That should have been on another branch."
Exactly.
I've been working for 3 hours and I need to take all this and put it on the other branch.
And I knew, yes, it's just not me, right? Like everybody else did in the same way. So I was like, what if? So I was actually doodling all for myself. I wasn't thinking about like sharing, but I did anyway. I just tweeted one day. So the very first one is really crappy hand drawing, but I just shared on GitHub and everybody loved it. So that's how I know it's like, yes, cats work, internet, it's made with cats. Plus, everybody's struggling with Git. So,
I appreciate that you're saying in many of these different things, and I think this is a lot of what I do as well, is you're saying, okay, this isn't that good. It was just for me,
mhm.
but I could share it anyway. I think a lot of people who might be listening might say, well, I don't have a blog or nothing I do is useful or interesting.
Oh,
But you,
mhm.
but you, it's sad, isn't it? But then you go and make a cat detecting Raspberry Pi and you could have kept it to yourself, but
Right.
you write about
Oh,
it.
yeah.
You make a sketch note and you could have kept it to yourself, but you write about it.
Mm,
Why not share?
yeah. I really want everybody to share their works. Not just their works, anything like you learn. So, like, I think the blog post, like technical blog post, let's say, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? It can be just your note, but it's just a public note. And of course, if you have a comments open, if it's something wrong, people can be nicely, like correct you. If somebody's mean, you can just shut this person off. But yeah. So actually, that's how I started blogging. That was a long time ago too. That was the time
Hmm.
I wasn't really posting my cat photos or doodling, but just a note for myself. It was something I've learned, something I've tried, something I experimented, and you never know who's reading. And how, yeah, that's something like a long time ago too. I remember when I was experimenting with then new CSS3 features. I actually ran a lot of testing on Safari. And yeah, that was like CSS animation or something 3D or something like that. Can't remember. But then
Hmm.
it actually, I never imagined, but somebody from Apple who was working on Safari actually saw my blog post. and he thought it was a really great test case. So actually, the engineers there did use my blog post to file more bugs and fix them. And I never imagined back in the time that actually my blog post helped the product get better. So I was really amazed and was so happy about this. And that actually really gave me a huge motivation to write more, you know. Of course, not every single blog post reached that many people or get much impact. Maybe just some people just say like, you know, press the like button or whatever. But it's fine. I mean, as long as you learn it and it helps somebody else, maybe fixing a bug or somebody who's as new as you are could learn or benefit from, it doesn't really matter, you know. I think it's just great to keep sharing, keep telling people what you've been working on, you know, or what have you been like, yeah, what have you been, even experiments like I did. Doesn't have to be like full-fledged product or project or anything.
Yeah, I was talking about that recently, and I said someone told me that they had 15 blog posts that they were in draft,
Mm.
and they were thinking about blogging about them, but they were like, yeah, I want to get it perfect. And honestly, I would much rather have 15, 80% blog posts
Yeah.
than one perfect blog post. Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. Wow, it's such a waste. You can't just put it as a draft and no one else ever sees that. Oh.
Yeah. The problem is though, one person says something mean and it can really ruin your whole day. And it's hard to have the energy to be able to just say, you know, whatever the haters
Yeah.
and move on. But someone told me once, they said, hey, Scott, how can I become like a popular blogger?
Mm.
And I said, I don't know about that, but if you just blog a little bit every week for 20 years, you'll be a mediocre middle blogger like me, right? It doesn't matter if 10 people read it or a million people read it. If more than one person read it, then I've doubled my power.
Yeah, like you don't have to be a popular or internet famous or anything, you know, as long as even one
Exactly.
person like appreciate what you've done and say thank you. Just one thank you is just enough for me, to be honest.
That is a really good attitude. One thank you is enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think you and I agree that we should encourage people to put
Mm-hmm.
little interesting things that they know. People also say, I don't know if I want to blog because what do I know? Why am I special? One of your blogs that you did last year that I thought was really interesting, that you didn't have to blog it,
Mm-hmm.
but it was all about, and tell me if I'm saying this right, Reiwa,
Oh yeah.
the inner,
Huh?
yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me about what happened there and what's going on? Because the emperor Akihito, he left.
Yeah.
And then how does that change the calendar?
Oh gosh. So, well, like, since I don't live in Japan anymore, I'm so glad that I don't have to use their actually special calendar, to be honest. I can stick with, you know, just the Gregorian calendar year 2020, whatever. But in Japan, it has an emperor, and each emperor, like, each emperor's era has the name that's, I don't know exactly what the naming process is, but anyways, it's always go through some process to get new names. So now they get a new emperor, and the era is called Reiwa. It used to be Heisei. That means all those engineers in Japan all have to, you know, work on the date and time. It's the hardest things to work on, you know, in engineering. And uh, yeah, the interesting thing is now in JavaScript we have an international date object, and that's actually like you said, it's international, so it works in any. I think I would say like any countries, any nations, and it works with this special Japanese calendar system too. But when I actually wrote this, it was still not a new era. So, and the browser vendors haven't been implemented yet. So it was actually really wrote it for fun and see if it's going to work in the near future. So it's all working now. Yeah. So it doesn't really benefit a whole lot of people because, like, again, if you live outside of Japan, you would never need a special calendar, anyways. But it's just interesting backstories, to learn about some technology that exists. You might not need to use it, but it's just good to acknowledge.
Well, what
So,
was cool about it was that you put it into the context of things that I do understand, right? It's like, here's the date time in JavaScript that I know, and here's Japanese date system that I don't know, and then you combine the two. right? And you took two things that you know and shared it with us. And that's a way of, coming up with a blog post and a blog post topic and also teaching me something about another culture.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Yeah. Then I'm glad
It is interesting.
I'm so glad that you learned something from me. But it's really
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's really all it drives me to write more about. I should actually write more blog because these days I haven't really, written a whole lot because actually like blogging or writing tutorials have become my actual career and I have to do it at my work time. So I kind of spend less time for my own blog or my own tutorials and things like that.
That's a really tough situation because I work for Microsoft, and while my job isn't necessarily writing, certainly putting content out there is a part of it. And then you have to think about, who am I doing this content for? Is this a blog for the work, or is this a blog for my own website? And having your work and your life be mixed together online and certainly on Twitter can be very challenging.
Right. Yeah. But I'm still lucky enough that I'm actually doing this developer advocacy. It's a developer relations work. So I can kind of sort of mix in some way. Of course, I have to draw some lines between, professional career and, personal things. But it's still, like speaking at conferences and writing some technical stuff. It's my job anyway. So
don't you think they should let you put more cats in the documentation?
So I actually did. So I actually wrote some of the documentations on api.slack.com. That was like a Slack's API page. In past, when I joined the company, it was like 2017. So you could actually detect which page I wrote because every single documentation I wrote has cat picture or cat photo. I mean, the cat illustration, something like that. But we replaced them with something a little more professional. Oh, it's not about professional or not. It's simply because we had a new branding after that. So we had to replace all that screenshots and all that assets. So I don't think there are many. Oh, maybe some pages still have cats, I would say.
So they took all the fun out of it there.
There's some still, yeah. And and our documentation is actually really friendly and try to make it friendly. So it's not all too serious. So you'll probably still find some cat pictures somewhere hidden.
Well, hopefully I'll see some new blogs from you with more cats. And I appreciate you chatting with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
I've been chatting with Tomomi Imura, who has brought her joy of cats and technology together online, and we will see you again next week on another episode of Hansel Minutes.